Hey there, Tim Slade here, and welcome back to the ATD Ask a Trainer video series. In today's video, I'm answering your questions about working with difficult stakeholders and subject matter experts. So let's get to it. All right, so I have to be completely honest here. If there's one thing that I've always dreaded about working in this industry and about my job, it has to be working with those stakeholders and subject matter experts who are a bit more difficult. And don't get me wrong, it's not like they're all difficult. I've worked with some amazing stakeholders and subject matter experts, but it's something about those difficult ones that have a special way in standing out in our minds, right? But here's the problem. No matter how difficult it might be to work with some of your stakeholders and subject matter experts, especially the difficult ones, the fact is that you need each other. They contain the information you need to help solve their problems. So with that said, let's get to your questions about working with difficult stakeholders and subject matter experts. All right, so our first question comes from Alex Godinez, and Alex asks, what's the difference between a stakeholder and subject matter expert? Now, this is such an important question, and I know many of you are thinking, well, gosh, that is such a basic remedial question. However, I think it's very common within our industry for us to conflate what it is to be a stakeholder versus a subject matter expert, and how each of those different roles or each of those different individuals contribute to your learning project. So stakeholders tend to be individuals who have a vested interest in the outcomes of your project. So they have a performance issue that they're trying to solve within their department, and they have an actual vested interest in you helping them to fix it and turn that performance around. These tend to be vice presidents, directors, higher up the food chain. They're not really in the weeds with the actual knowledge or skills. That's where subject matter experts come in. Subject matter experts tend to be practitioners in whatever it is that you're creating training on. That's why they're experts. And they're in the weeds and they know the ins and outs. And they're contributing to your project purely by providing their expertise and their knowledge. Now, with that being all said, I will say sometimes subject matter experts and stakeholders are one and the same. Sometimes they are the same individual, but more often than not, they're two different individuals. So I hope that answers that question, and thank you, Alex, for submitting it. All right, our second question comes from Andy Lockwood. Hi, Andy. And Andy asks, how do I get my stakeholders and SMEs to see me as a strategic partner, very important, rather than just an order taker? I love this question, and I'll be completely transparent when I say there really isn't an easy answer to this, because whatever political dynamics you're experiencing within your organization that's causing this rift between your stakeholders and subject matter experts and how they view you is going to be different for your organization versus anyone else's. But here's one common theme that I have seen in the 10 plus years I've been working in this industry. It's very common for anyone who's working in a learning function or the entire learning department in general to get themselves into this position where they're working subserviently to those that they're supporting, their stakeholders and subject matter experts. And this is only natural because what it is that we do is a supporting function, usually, right? And so it's only natural that they're going to view us as people who can fulfill their requests. But that's really not what it is that we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be fulfilling their requests. We're supposed to be partnering with them and helping them solve their issues, right? Their performance issues within their organization. So how do you change that dynamic? Well, the first thing I always have to tell you, and I tell this to anybody, is it's not going to happen overnight. You're turning a massive ship around, and it's going to take time, and it's going to be a bumpy road. But there's two things I'll tell you. First off, anytime somebody comes to you and asks you to build training, ask questions, dig into it, find out why they think training is the answer, and ask those questions that uncover whether or not training is actually the answer. And then the next one is, even when training's not the answer, still provide some sort of recommendation or solution. Part of our jobs is not just to provide training recommendations, but performance recommendations. So the more frequently you can provide a recommendation, whether it's training or not, the more likely you are to build trust with those stakeholders and subject matter experts. And the more that they trust you, the more likely you are to turn around that relationship. And like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. It sometimes takes months, if not years, to turn that ship around. But best of luck. Thanks. All right, so our next question comes from Brittany Cole, and Brittany asks, what are some strategies you can use when you have a SME that's unavailable or barely has the time to commit to the project? What a common issue. I know I've experienced this a million times, and I'm sure many of you have experienced this, and it's incredibly frustrating when you're supposed to work with somebody and they don't make themselves available or they don't commit enough time or energy to what you need from them. The way that you solve this is way at the beginning of your project. Every project I ever do, I always start with a kickoff meeting that involves my stakeholders and my subject matter experts. And the purpose of that kickoff meeting is to set expectations from the get-go. So it's your job to help them understand and explain to them the time commitment involved in whatever it is that you're creating. If you're creating an e-learning course, they need to understand that they're going to have to take time to review your storyboards or your prototypes or whatever the case might be. All right. So set those expectations up from the beginning and get them to commit that they will make the time. If not, if they can't make the time for some reason, it's okay to make adjustments to your development timeline. But you have to let them know the cost of doing that. If they want something delivered next week, but they're not able to commit the time to review it within the next week, then it's not going to be delivered next week, right? So you have to be really straightforward and honest with them about what you need from them, how much time it's going to take, and whether or not they can meet those expectations. The second thing I'll tell you is document everything. Every time you need something from them, email them. Have it documented so that you have a paper trail that you can go back to with your boss or the stakeholder and help them see that you have made a good faith effort to work with that subject matter expert and they're just not giving you the time necessary. And then the final thing is don't be afraid to escalate it. Escalate it to your boss or escalate it to your stakeholder or escalate it to the boss of your subject matter expert and let them know that they committed to helping you and you're not getting what you need and this is how it's causing you issues. And so, for example, if you escalate it to your stakeholder, like I said in one of the earlier questions, stakeholders have a vested interest in the project. And if you make it their problem, they're going to go knocking on that SME's door and maybe they can help solve it for you. So let them know the issues and how it's putting your project at risk by their lack of engagement. So I hope those tips help. All right, I think that's all we have time for today. Those were just some fantastic questions. So I want to send a huge thank you to everyone who sent in their question. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube and you'd like to get alerted when we publish our next episode of Ask a Trainer, click that subscribe button below and make sure to check out the ATD Ask a Trainer advice column by clicking the link in the description. My name is Tim Slade, and until next time, I'll see you around.